Hello and welcome back to Generation Yours, the podcast that addresses real estate, tech and sustainability crossing generations. I'm Joseph Michael Daniels.
And I'm Catalina Valentino.
And today we have a unique guest on that is actually in the elixir space. Yes, investment, and yes, sustainability. So, as always, I'll start with some quick facts. Did you know that by 2050, according to the UNFCCC, it's going to cost $125 trillion to get to net zero? Well, the UK government have actually put a dent in that. So in the last 5 years, did you know that the UKRI have invested 1.9 billion, into innovative, sustainable solutions and technology? And over the course of the next few years, they plan to get to 3 billion. So I'm going to let the guest introduce themselves. So do you want to give us a quick segue into who you are?
I'm Mike Pitts. I work for Innovate UK, which is the part of the UK research and innovation that looks at business-led innovation. So really, we're just here to try and remove barriers to companies innovating faster and growing and supporting the UK economy, as well as benefiting the environment and society.
Is there any in the world where else does this? I'm keen to understand that because I've not seen a lot of like government-led innovation, sustainable investment programs.
A lot of countries do have innovation agencies, I suppose, is the way we call it, and they vary in their kind of scope and the way they work. I suppose DARPA in the US is quite well known, but it's largely driven by military procurement. But
Innovate,
yeah,
means war.
Well, nothing creates good innovation better than a crisis. So war is usually where you get some of the
driving factor,
the fastest innovation. But that's not exactly the way we look at it. So yeah, the war on climate would be a good thing, wouldn't it?
Oh, I like that. Innovation in the war on climate. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. For any entrepreneur out there listening to you right now, what is the Innovate UK specifically looks for in a business to invest into them?
That's a great question. I think a lot of applicants to us say, what's the kind of trick? What's the exam technique? And really, we're not asking you for anything other than what you would pitch to an investor or to the bank or even a customer. We want to understand your business model, how any kind of request for money is going to help support your growth along that business model rather than setting you off in a different direction. And we really want to know, why you, why now, why public money? What's the difference public money will make? And that's really because we've got quite a higher risk appetite than investors. So we want to support stuff early stage. We want to support ideas that deliver on big government issues, societal issues. And what we really want to do is look at supporting where the UK can be world leaders as well. So what are the kind of technology areas and problem areas where the UK has a specific advantage? And that's why we're part of UK Research and Innovation. So we work with all the research councils that fund basic science so that we can pull through the kind of world-leading science we have in the UK and help grow businesses faster, really. It's really, at the end of it, we want to understand how you're going to help grow the economy and make life better for everybody and tackle net zero.
Strategic piece of advice. I've done this a few times with the UKRI. I don't even know how many times I've been successful or not successful across my core portfolio, actually. But answer the questions directly, just to keep.
You're so right.
Because a big thing. So I just want to that's really important because the question's important. And if you're listening and you're in innovation and you're in sustainability, you're in research, and you're thinking, do you know what, I need investment. Good thing about UKRI is there's not an investor on your board that now tells you what to do. You also get segues in, but you really have to be, and I think it's fair to say, quite factual and quite direct with what you are solving. Don't gloss it. Answer the questions about you, your passion, your business, but also answer the question to the grant, which is a big mistake for young entrepreneurs. I think
I
they
suppose
make
it
a
is
lot.
a bit like exam technique in that respect. When I did English at school. You get into the exam and you'd see a question about Shakespeare and Romeo and Juliet, and you just, sometimes you just write down everything you knew about it rather than actually answering the question. And really, we really do want to know the answers to the questions we're asking, so to see where it kind of fits in our portfolio and so on. If you're not sure, just talk to us.
But that's because
we want to support businesses like you.
It's because I think as well that's unique about this. You have a directive to solve a problem, and it's all good listening to the ideas and all that, but it's like we've got money to invest, we're backed by the government, and there is this problem. So we're giving you this, and I don't think it is like an exam. I think it's saying we've got these questions for a reason, and these questions are specific to the investment that we're trying to make. So let's talk about then sectors, right? You know me, I'm into what are we into? Green finance,
so, yeah.
digital twins, decarbonisation, blah 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 blah. So I personally have a belief that it's our greatest and currently only export that is going to sustain the future growth of this country. I've got very strong feelings on that. I think we play a principal role. Countries like Saudi are groundbreaking in their investment, and funnily enough, I'm seeing a lot of UK technologies. We're talking desalination, waste to energy management. We're talking things that could create a circular economy. Massive investment coming in from the Middle East because they're trying to build these smart cities and infrastructure. What do you think are really topical at the moment and primary investments for the skills? For that kind of, we have this beautiful landscape and system that allows growth of innovation. What do you think are going to be the next big markets, and what do you think people should focus on when they're thinking about this?
So I'd say we are investing taxpayers' money, and that's what we have to remember. And we're always trying to leverage in private investment and look into those spaces. But again, it's got to be where UK can be world leading. You know, we're not going to lead in some areas of technology where other countries have leapt in front of us or have the right resources or whatever. So within the net zero space, I think we're looking very much at what the future economy looks like, the systems that need to be decarbonised. That means the sectors of today having to change. So we try not to use the term sectors. We talk about the big system. So how do we get to net zero mobility? How do we get to net zero heat, which is the area I look after? How do we get to net zero power? And how do we kind of decarbonise our system of manufacturing and using stuff? You know, how do we start to close the loop on materials? And again, that's an area where we probably can be, world leading with the manufacturing base that we have. So yeah, they're the big kind of system opportunities, and because we are the fastest decarbonising, or on track to be, or committed to be the fastest decarbonising economy, that's what we're trying to look to see. How do we prosper from being that
green innovation
transition, and how do we deliver for society with it? That's the big angle for me, is to say I think we think too much. There's a real danger that you end up coming up with solutions for people like you and not bringing in that thinking about the most vulnerable in society. When we get an innovation that works for everybody, that's where the biggest markets are. So in the heat transition, really thinking about vulnerable customers, it's very easy to forget that somewhere between a fifth and a quarter of households are on prepayment meters. You know, a fancy app solution isn't going to work for a lot of those people. How do we transition for everybody? Otherwise, I think some of the license to operate gets taken away as well.
Yeah, that's really important. Bringing it back to the sort of applicants that you have then, do you at all factor in the founder in any of the applications, like the sort of passion that they might have, or is it just solely focused on the actual business itself?
That's a good question. I think for some things we might look quite hard at the people. So we've run some quite specific programs to kind of amplify the diversity of our applicants. We've run our Women in Innovation competition a few times now.
Yes,
we've done similar for young entrepreneurs who probably don't have the same access to opportunities as others. What we really want to do is show that Innovate UK funding's there for all types, not just white middle-aged men like myself who are running businesses and probably don't have the diversity of thinking we need to solve some of these challenges. And then elevating those role models in a way that help others come. One of the best things for Women in Innovation, the first thing we did with that on the very first round is we photographed a lot of those winners in their settings in a collaboration with Getty Images, because frankly we were sick and tired of when you searched for woman entrepreneur, you got a model in a lab coat.
A model in a lab coat standing there on an office desk like this.
So real people, real images. And there's some fantastic stories out there. And really, a lot of what we can bring is that storytelling. As an organisation, we are touching the future all the time. We need to be telling the story about what that future looks like and the real people who are delivering it. It's always better to tell the story of the entrepreneur than our role. You know, we're secondary to that, really.
Yeah. And actually, I find this quite an interesting point as well. With your diversity and inclusion, you were mentioning that when it comes to the applicants, not necessarily how your process is, but what do you see in terms of the applications, are you seeing a diverse number of applications, or is that something that we then need to push on society to get sort of more diverse applications in?
We're working all the time to improve the inclusivity of the way we work. We've just, when we're filming this, we've just run a program last week, an innovation lab, which, you know, we should have probably got you there, Joe, really. And what we are able to do now is make a lot of adjustments to allow a more diverse group of applicants. But even in the processes we do, we're trying to bring inclusive innovation into our thinking. So we spent the time. Really, what we were looking at in the week last week in this innovation lab was to say, how do we look at the whole process of retrofit and start to improve it? And we know from other things we've done in the past, when you get everybody in the room, experts in the room from different parts of that process, having a conversation that they haven't had before, they often come up with new ideas about how they could work together. And we're saying, we'll fund those projects. So that's exactly what we did, and we tried to bring in some diversity of thinking. What we really want, I think, with some of these is to bring in the kind of lived experiences of some of the kind of end users in all of this, to really say what works and what doesn't. We had some really fantastic support from the Energy Systems Catapult. There's a lady there called Dr. Rose Chard, who's definitely worth getting on here, whose job is to look at inclusive innovation for the just transition of energy and heat and all of that. And she could bring in a lot of different perspectives. Really simple stuff, like how badly designed most thermostats are. You know, how hard they are to use.
You want to hear Matt's story? Listen to this story. We had a project where we were retrofitting a heat pump, and this is one of the reasons for the development of the SENS technology. We had 3 different people go into the property beforehand, so probably 2-3 grand spent on assessments and time and all this. Spent a fortune on, and I'm not scaring people off heat pumps, but we spent a fortune and did all this stuff. And someone put the thermostat for the system with the temp gauge in the cupboard with the hot water tank. I was like, and they were like, why is the system tripping out? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you can tell me, why would the system be tripping out saying it's too hot? And so I think you're right. There's a big educational piece on the mapping of it, and there is just a skills gap. And that's some of the things that have changed recently. One size doesn't fit all. Wrapping houses around houses is there's a system out there, I can't name it because it's just be unfortunate too, and it would be very nice, but wrapping a building around a building is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like going like, here's this thing, it doesn't work, do you know what you should do? Find the problem. Nah, I'll sell you 80 grand of stuff and we'll just seal it.
Hide the problem.
Yeah.
This is it, you know, end users, we stress design a lot. Yeah. So one of the things is we're always offering support from design thinking. So we had design experts in the room that week with the lab. We had ED&I experts who could really think about where you can include, users who are vulnerable. I was lucky enough to be part of the Warm Home Prescription Task Force recently that the Energy Systems Catapult ran, where we paid for people's, to have a warm home over the winter, where they had conditions that were exacerbated by a cold home. So quite often respiratory conditions, old and young. Because what we were avoiding then was them presenting to the NHS and costing society more than if we just paid their energy bills. And what we discovered really, that one of the biggest lessons was they were just used to being cold. Yeah. Didn't value having a warm home and what that could bring. So until you can start to get them to understand that, you can't even begin to offer them something like a retrofit at home.
Best innovations are the ones that seamlessly happen and save everyone time and money. They just happen.
You've got to do the people. I mean, I love to tell the story about. I'm a semi-retired cricketer now, but my groundsman used to say I can make a perfect cricket square if only you buggers didn't play on it. Yeah. And that's the thing. A lot of innovators can come up with stuff that work great until the people get involved. And that's what we tried to bring
ground
in.
Source heat pumps. That's one.
So coming back to the kind of diversity thing. So with the Innovation Lab, one of the things we were most happy with was that we said, like, we're locking people away for 5 days so they have the time to come up with much more diverse thinking in projects than they would get if we just spontaneously said, we'll fund some projects, you come up with your own consortia. So the consortia were forming live through the week and a lot of support to do that. So that way we get the breadth of thinking that we wanted. But that commitment to be there for 5 days is, again, something not everybody can
So
access.
is the reason that I wasn't invited to this specific one because last time you got me on the stage with the biggest house builder, my opening statement was everyone's throwing shit at a wall and hoping it sticks. Were you like, we just can't, like, Joe, you're edgy.
They enjoyed that though. It was good.
They did. But I got feedback. Everyone was up to me like, finally, here, this guy calling everybody out, telling them it's all nonsense.
You'd have loved this. You'd have loved the Innovation Lab week, but you would have exhausted everyone, I'm sure, Joe. That's
Too many
the other
ideas.
thing.
This is the thing.
As he often does.
Often.
But we were able to be, offer necessary adjustments, So, 2 stories. There's one lady who was there, young mother, and we were able to make sure that her husband and young daughter were there for the week, so she could stay with them.
There was dogs.
There were dogs as well. There were 2 retired guide dogs that are putting a lifetime of service in and don't like to be left alone. So rather than put them in kennels, we let the guy bring them to the workshop, and we had them in the corner. And now I won't run a workshop without comfort support dogs in the corner. They were such a people went and gave them a hug in the morning because it wasn't emotional. It's a tough week. It's a tough week working through stuff from scratch, and we all had our moments. And having some dogs to cuddle was a big part of it. So
You're Gen Z, Kat. So like,
I am.
and you're leading in venture builder. What would your advice be to UKRI? Because I get it. Don't get me wrong. I get the UKRI. I understand the process. I've been in it. There's still, I think, like everything,
how do we bring it up
generationally.
to date?
I think generationally, there's just work to do in everything because everything's moving so fast. What do you think?
That's interesting. I mean, of course, you can't control the sort of outcomes of who's applying to you, but I guess when it comes to marketing, that's always a big thing. And the sort of, even looking at your website, it's beautiful, nice and corporate. Does it appeal to Gen Z? Perhaps not, but that's not the market you're looking at right now. But I always say that we should be marketing to 15-year-olds, and that's what we always sort of have a motto of in Elixir, because they are the next generation who are essentially going to bring longevity to any organisation. I think it's always quite challenging. I mean, I spoke about this with a bank recently as well, and they said that they're just trying to get onto TikTok now and understanding all that sort of landscape. And I'm not suggesting you have to go through radical innovation right now. I mean, although that is always suggested, I would say that, at least incrementally, getting in front of young founders, young people. But again, it's also quite challenging. I can contradict myself over and over again, because how many young founders are there at the moment? At the moment, Gen Z are, I think, 11 to 26 or something like that. So it's quite challenging to get in front of them now.
What's interesting, you just made a really good point. I highlighted something. I said you spent 1.9 billion on innovation across all these different areas.
Invested.
Yeah, invested. Sorry, invested. Spent. Yeah. How much of that have you spent on innovating your outreach program and marketing? I think the Getty Images is a prime example. It's actually really interesting. The interactivity and the engagement happens differently. We have built into Elixir an impact documentary filmmaking company because we've realized that the engagement now to get people talk about involvement and how like digital voting might alienate the older vote. But because everyone's looking at it from the point of getting old, but what they also don't understand is that the kid that uses AI on an iPhone has never gone to a post office. What do you think on that dynamic on enabling and unlocking the next gen? Because they are the ones that are going to use all these tools to their advantage.
The power of storytelling is what matters with all of this. I mean,
that's facts.
The challenge is, and maybe where I'm different to some of my colleagues is, we are largely scientists, engineers. A lot of us, most of us have come from industry, from delivering programs there, and you care about the facts, you care about the science, you care about the technology. But if you just talk about that doesn't win over hearts and minds. So the storytelling, particularly human-centered storytelling, is so important to all of it. We've really got to communicate, through either the founders, the entrepreneurs themselves, or the people who are benefiting from the innovations that we're supporting. That's how we want to communicate. We do try to do it. It's again, you're investing taxpayers' money. You don't want to spend that in a bad way.
How ironic is that though? No, but how ironic is that so YouTube is full of now the most wonderful videos around how things get built. The B1M's a great channel, but there's so many of them. There's Fern, which is incredible, which talks about recently in rare earth minerals being found in Sweden. I'm a scientist at nature at heart, but I'm also a narrative storyteller. But the ironic thing is that I think it's because of the landscape that we exist within, without going to too much of the political side of things. We kind of would see that as a waste of money. But the ironic thing is that we're investing millions and millions of money into things that you might or might not use, and you're never going to see a video of anyone actually probably use or using them and how it could have impacted your life. So the best money you could probably spend on all these is we should probably tell people how it helps and benefits the actual people that are investing in the taxpayer.
Well, it's the big stories are always about change, right? You know, and the meta narratives are the big stories of change we're trying to drive, and it's something I champion. You know, I ran the Transforming Construction Challenge before this. We had 5 years working out how we improved the way we, you know, do new builds, particularly things like schools and so forth, and how we can help construction learn from other process industries. And some real change there. But we realised a big part of it was to change the culture. A lot of what holds entrepreneurs back is old thinking, which is why it's so important to have young Gen Z and so on involved in you know, their thinking, their different view on things. But also, you know, you've kind of got to show them change is happening faster than they realise. And so that's where the kind of storytelling really kind of came in, you know, amplifying the stories of the successes we had can change. You know, we're only able to fund a small number of projects, but that bigger picture of change for the whole sector needs to come across them. Yeah. We did at the end of it. We put a video together. It's worth looking at, UKRI.org/TCC. We did a 10-minute video. I'm very proud of it because we did tell a story of the challenge. And my brief was, we're going to put this video together to give you the idea of the breadth of what we kind of did. Amazing. And there will not be a single second of stock footage in it.
I love that. So
nice.
that's a big deal, man. Do you know what the funny thing is? We've said this impact investment because it's impact storytelling that impacts people. So we talk about Gen Z.
No models in lab coats.
No models in lab coats. So we spoke about Gen Z, but also I want to talk about the other end of the spectrum because this is the intergenerational podcast. That's the whole point, is our generations together. And two people I've worked with that were through your through your investment program, Energy Carbon.
Yes.
Founded by Nick and Rod, who are two gentlemen, north 50, I believe, you know, Gen X boomers. They came onto the podcast. I'm working very close with them. What a dynamic, amazing couple of guys. Let's talk about how also investment and new technology, because these guys do some groundbreaking cool stuff, and we're working on some amazing next-gen thinking that we're so outside the box. You need 50 years of experience, plus my mentalness, plus the young to make it happen. What do you think about that generational experience contributing to innovation and working alongside the new gen?
Oh, hugely. I'm so enthused by it. You know, it's that diversity of thinking and realizing what's possible. I think you so quickly get out of date in your kind of technology knowledge. It's always a risk in any area around innovation. I remember from a few years ago we had one of these what do you call them, a hackathon, when we were first looking at things like BIM, so building information modeling, the kind of data around putting a building together in a way we actually know what the damn thing's in the damn thing. And there were all these data sets there, and we had there was a weekend hackathon at the Connected Places Catapult, and there was a 15-year-old turned up, and this kid took some of these BIM models and created a 3D holographic projector over the weekend.
Wow.
100%. Yeah,
just using bits of stuff that were lying around.
Yeah.
You know, creating this spinning 3D model for people to look at. And it was like, how fast is change going to come for you? This is how fast it can. If so much of it is about asking the right questions, I think, and letting the smart people, particularly the next generation, they've just got.
But you said this the other day about AI,
digital skills.
Absolutely.
You know, it's.
You said this is interesting. You were talking about AI the other day, going in and being like, how are we going to learn a subject, or are we just going to learn that AI can basically unlock it and start learning things? What were you you were talking about that the other day, about how AI is transforming in this sector in education?
Yeah, in education for sure. Yeah, I was making a point that I'd seen a video about these women who were talking about artificial intelligence and education, and some women were saying, oh, we need to ban it, we need to do this, we need to do that, and one woman actually said, well, why should we ban it? Because at the end of the day, people are going to find ways to use it regardless. And why don't we look at a way of actually including it into the examination, and in fact then making the tests as a result harder, but applicable to using artificial intelligence or general intelligence or whatever, which is interesting because that's exactly what we did with the calculator on a maths test as well, right?
It's true, isn't it? It's so true.
Well, the whole point is automation. I see artificial intelligence as part of this broad scheme of how we automate things. People, robots will take our jobs away.
Skynet.
Robots and an AI will do the boring stuff.
Yeah.
That is a waste of your time.
I think it'll have a good impact on the social side of sustainability.
And productivity.
And it gives you facts. Let's face it. I can't say the word because we're allowed to talk politics today. But a big point of us leaving Europe because we were uneducated on the topic. We could have gone to AI. Is it really good? Can you give me the facts? And I think that's a key thing, is that we can use these tools, and we talk about this on the podcast a lot because this is
train them right.
Yeah, and it's it's not going to. You're right. It's going to replace the boring tasks. And could you imagine writing a research paper without Google? And that was only 25 years ago.
But again, this is another role, I think, for Innovate UK, is the social acceptance of certain technologies. The AI is something the UK can be, world leading in. We have a big AI program. There is something now called Bridge AI to bring artificial intelligence into some of the areas like construction that just haven't used it as much yet as they could do. And we've got a role here to be able to point to some of the amazing stuff that it is being applied to, and how much better it's making lives. When it starts to improve things like health outcomes, and make your life more productive and save things. I mean, one other worry, of course, is that just like with exams, people will start using it when they're applying to us. So we have to be ahead of that game as well.
I'd be surprised if they haven't already, to be honest.
Well,
mate,
I thought we are looking at it. But there's ways of finding out. So we will.
Yeah.
We're very careful about it. Again, going back to that question. Don't use AI. Don't use a grant writer. Just tell us. Tell us what you really want.
Can I tell you a secret? I don't know if I can say this on camera. I'm going to do it. In the past, used a grant writer because there was a project that I won't mention and I won't name anything, but I had one fail and I had a grant writer write it, and we won it, but the context of the deployment wasn't for the thing that it should have been for. So I would advise, having been in part of submissions for years, don't apply. If you're a company and you're a big company, don't apply for a grant for any of these things just because you can. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of everyone's time. Whilst innovation may come, do it because there's purpose. This is taxpayer money. This is people's lives. Could be going to a young startup. I think that's important to note, isn't it? That a lot of people do use the system, and that's just, it's cool. Make your money. But how is that helping anyone but you and your company? Let's think about how this taxpayer money is designed, as you said, to look at social outcomes. I think it's an important statement to make. It's important that people hear that as well.
Yeah, and talk to us. That's the other thing.
Communicate.
We're there to help. We do want, like I said before, we're only asking the same things an investor might ask you or a bank might ask you. And if you can't explain it to us, in down to earth language, and we want to give you the money, and we have tech experts who understand your tech, then you're going to struggle as a business to convince others to invest or customers to buy into it. So, we're not asking you anything more than you should be able to do anyway. But I think people make it feel more complicated than it is.
Cool. So we're going to close because we like to keep these nice and short and sweet. But I'm going to ask us a quick question because I think it's quite cool. All three of us will answer. You'll go first, I'll go second, you go third. Okay. What are the three? You're a young entrepreneur, you're listening to this, or you're an old entrepreneur, or you're an entrepreneur in general, because we should be ageless when we're entrepreneurs. It should be entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur and you're watching this, or you're a banker or a financer or a developer or a construction guy, or insert the top sectors that listen to this podcast, what is our advice on the top three sectors that we think are ripe for change and investment right now?
Wow, that is a nice big question. Across everything?
Pick three sectors.
I mean, obviously, I sit in
come to your head.
I do sit in net zero, but I'm actually a chemist by training. So God, I've ended up in all sorts of places. I think personally, if I had some money to invest, to be around the relationship between gut bacteria and mental health and overall body health in the health space. I think there's huge advances in the way we again link health and our buildings. That's a big area for us now. We think it's not just the outcomes in retrofitting buildings and building new ones is as much about the health of the occupants as anything else. And the way artificial intelligence will transform so much of our human interface with our physical world. So I'm gonna go AI, human machine interfacing.
as you know, I'm fully hedged on the fact that I think the way that we interact with the world is rapidly changing. The reason you put AI in there is the volumes of data needs to be contextualized, not consensual.
Consensual.
It's AI, it doesn't care. No, contextualized. The next one is
consent is always important.
Consent's always important. The next one is biotech. So I use a Whoop. And you just said with well-being, I'm doing some trials at the moment to watch my heart rate variation linked to building data. I think that's cool as hell. How can my environment benefit me? And then I do think the third one is, I was going to come up with a cool answer, but I actually think education. I think the skills gap, because the skills gap is effed right now, because as we said, you've got people trained in certain things that are in certain environments in the markets now. There's not enough skills going around, and we need to, if that's opening up immigration in a way that allows us to build these resources for people, because we don't have enough young people trained, we might have to accept that as a country and say we need international resource and people and trained people and use the training we have. So I think education on that side of things, for me, the more the skills side is a big one.
Yeah, that's pretty much leading me on to where I was going to go. And I'm going to be a little bit of a rebel. I'm just going to give you one answer, because this is one very important topic which you led clearly nicely on. So education for me, I think, naturally we have to start at grassroots level, right? Like I said earlier, marketing to 15-year-olds, sustainability, longevity of our culture and everything. Education, we have to be looking at what we're teaching our children, of course. I think we all agree with that. But I think that the schooling system, it's not been updated for God knows how many years, right? So we're very far behind that, and for some reason nobody seems to be kind of making that change regardless, even though everybody knows that it's something that needs to be done. I think that one really important point for me is not only looking at education from a youth perspective, but also reskilling as well. I know we talk a lot about that with regards to Elixir. We're looking at collaboration between Gen Z, Gen X, and all the generations in between and above. And it's not just a case of looking at the young entrepreneurs, but actually how are we training those people who now have kind of either gone out of work because of all their job redundancies that I'm sure will be coming or have already come from different industries. And also then looking at how we cross-collaborate. I think in education systems right now today, we teach our children information, which probably isn't tangible for the outside world, and also social skills. And that's one thing that we miss out on. And employers now are really focusing on those soft skills. They're looking at individuals who are teachable, and may not have a diverse enough experience, but actually they seem teachable, they are very agile, and so I think we should be focusing a lot of our education system on those social skills rather than just always on the information. So I know a big part of what we're doing with Elixir, we've got Academy as well, which is looking at bringing more of like a virtual spin onto education with gamified technology. I think there's a really big opportunity for radical innovation in education.
Right. Well, I think we embed some of that as well, those differences. I was very good at science at school, but I also like the creative stuff, but they were almost like it's made to be a choice.
Yeah, kinesthetic or academic.
We've realised, and as you've got here, the importance of storytelling. Actually, when you're applying towards telling a good story, that's really what you're doing.
Yeah. My wild card was rare earth minerals, and that's a whole other topic for another debate that I need to find someone about, because I want to discuss that topic like wildfire. But
you should have talked to me earlier then.
Next time, we're on it. I love it.
Endangered elements periodic table.
Rare earth minerals is my new thing. All right, cool. We'll chat. So, guys, what have we learned today? We've learned that the education system is transformed for change, and we've learned that the government, believe it or not, whilst all the decisions that are being made around you may scare you, are investing, and they're investing in innovation, and they're probably investing in the green jobs of the future. So there's actually a bit of good news here to take from this politically difficult time. And we've also learned that be factual, tell your story, and that narrative is actually just as important when you're trying to raise investment, even when it's a governed framework, and that taxpayers' money is the most important money for social value. This has been Generation of Yours. Thank you. Like, subscribe, share, comment. Yes, you. I see you. You got to the end of the episode. Like and subscribe and share, because you don't. Not all of you. Big love. See you next week. Ciao.
Tell Greta to allow me. I know that my carbon footprint's large.